Taesung stared at the official message on his datapad for the third time that morning. The words had not changed. The Varax Empire wanted him on their homeworld within 10 days. No explanation, no option to refuse, just a cold diplomatic summons that made his old war wounds ache. He sat in the cockpit of his freight hauler, surrounded by the familiar hum of engines and the sterile white walls of the cargo bay. This ship was his life now. Quiet, alone, safe. The war had ended 8 years ago, but Taesung still felt like he was fighting it every single day. The Varax, just thinking about them made his jaw tighten. He had spent 3 years shooting at them, watching friends die because of them. The peace treaty was supposed to fix everything. It fixed nothing. It just made people pretend the hate was gone. His communicator buzzed. Jiwoo's face appeared on the screen. She ran a bar on Station Hansung where Taesung docked between jobs. Her expression was worried. "You actually going to answer that summons?" she asked. "Do I have a choice?" Taesung replied. "It came through official coalition channels. If I ignore it, I lose my shipping license. Maybe worse, could be a trap. The Vrax don't forget who killed their soldiers." "I know." Taesung rubbed his face. But the message mentioned a life debt. From their king, Jiwoo's eyes widened. "The incident at the ceasefire talks?" Taesung nodded. 5 years ago, human extremists had tried to assassinate Prince Kael'ron during negotiations. Taesung had been part of the security detail. When the bombs went off, instinct took over. He pulled the prince out of the flames, saved his life, then spent 2 months in a hospital recovering from burns. "I thought they forgot about that," Taesung muttered. "Vrax never forget debts," Jiwoo said quietly. "Be careful. Whatever they're giving you, it won't be simple." She was right. Nothing with the Vrax was ever simple. 10 days later, Taesung stood in the grand hall of the Vrax royal palace. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, covered in bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. Vrax nobles lined the walls, their scaled skin shimmering in shades of purple and black. Every single one of them stared at him with those vertical slit eyes that had haunted his nightmares for years. At the far end of the hall, on a platform of carved stone, lay High Sovereign Velthar. The king was dying. Even Taesung could see that. His scales had faded to a dull gray and his breathing rattled like broken machinery. Prince Kael'ron stood beside his father's platform. He was the only Vrax in the room who did not look at Taesung with contempt. When their eyes met, the prince inclined his head slightly. A gesture of respect. "Human Corporal Taesung," the king's voice echoed through the hall. It was weak but still commanded attention. "You saved my son's life when you had every reason to let him die." "I was doing my job," Taesung said. His voice sounded too loud in the massive space. "You were doing more than that," the king replied. "You acted with honor when others chose treachery. For this, I am bound by the old laws to repay the life debt before I die." Taesung felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He did not want anything from these people. He just wanted to go back to his ship and forget this whole thing. "From the royal kennels," the king continued, "I grant you a treasure of our people. May it serve you as faithfully as you served my bloodline." 2 Vrax handlers entered the hall from a side door. Between them, on heavy chains, walked the largest creature Taesung had ever seen outside of a zoo. It stood 4 feet tall at the shoulder, with a body built like a wolf but bigger, heavier. Its fur was the deep blue of midnight sky, and when it turned to look at the assembled nobles, Taesung counted 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows across its face. A Fenrix. He had seen pictures in military briefings. The Varax used them as guards and hunting animals. They were supposed to be mindless beasts, dangerous but controllable. This one did not look mindless. This one looked directly at Taesung, and there was something in those 6 eyes that made his skin prickle. Intelligence, awareness, maybe even judgment. The nobles began to whisper. The sound grew louder, angrier. Taesung did not understand their language, but he understood tone. They were not happy about this. Prince Kael'ron's voice cut through the noise. "Father, perhaps another gift would be more appropriate." This creature, the king interrupted, "is my choice. The human will take it." One of the nobles stepped forward. He was younger than the others, his scales still bright. "Your Majesty, that beast is defective. It is scheduled for termination. You honor no one by giving them our refuse." The Fenrix's lips pulled back, showing teeth like knives. The handlers jerked the chains tight, but the creature did not lunge. It simply stared at the noble who had spoken. "The matter is decided," the king said. Then he looked at Tae-sung. "Do you accept this gift in payment of the life debt?" Every instinct told Tae-sung to refuse. But he was standing in the middle of the Vrak's homeworld, surrounded by aliens who would love an excuse to kill him. Refusing a dying king's gift was probably that excuse. "I accept," Tae-sung said. The king nodded once. "Then the debt is paid. Take your property and go." The handlers brought the Fenrix forward. Up close, it was even bigger. Its shoulder came up to Tae-sung's chest. The chains looked too thin to actually hold it. One of the handlers thrust the control lead into Tae-sung's hands. "It has been fed," the handler said in accented human speech. "Do not let it near other animals. Do not remove the control collar. If it becomes violent, press the red trigger. That will deliver a shock." Tae-sung looked down at the Fenrix. It looked back at him with those 6 eyes. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or just mutual disgust. The handler turned to leave. Tae-sung grabbed his arm. "Wait, what's its name?" The handler looked confused. "It does not have a name. It is an animal. It must be called something. The kennel masters called it defect number 7. Nothing more." The handler pulled free and walked away. Tae-sung stood there holding the chain, feeling the weight of 6 eyes judging him. The nobles were leaving now, their whispers following them out of the hall. Prince Kaileron approached, his expression difficult to read. "My father's mind wanders at the end," the prince said quietly. "That creature was meant to die. It is dangerous and unpredictable. If you wish, I can arrange for it to be destroyed and give you something else." "No," Tae-sung said. He was not sure why he said it. Maybe because he recognized the look in those 6 eyes, the look of something that had survived when it was supposed to die. "I'll take it." The prince studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I wish you fortune, human. You will need it." As the prince walked away, Tae-sung looked down at the Fenrix again. "Guess we're stuck together." The creature's mouth opened slightly. For a horrible second, Tae-sung thought it was going to attack. Then it spoke. "I did not ask for this either, human." The voice was deep, clear, and unmistakably intelligent. It spoke perfect human language with an accent Tae-sung could not place. Every sound came from the Fenrix's throat, shaped by a mouth that should not be able to form human words. Tae-sung stumbled backward. The chain fell from his hands. Across the hall, the few remaining nobles froze. The prince turned around, his eyes wide. The Fenrix sat down, watching them all with what might have been amusement. "Yes," it said calmly. "I can speak surprise." The trip back to Station Hansong took 3 days. 3 very long, very silent days. Tae-sung kept the Fenrix in the cargo hold, sealed behind a reinforced door. He brought food twice a day and left it by the entrance without saying a word. The creature never thanked him, never spoke at all after that first shocking moment in the palace. Tae-sung told himself he was fine with that. He did not want to talk to it anyway. Talking to it meant accepting what he had heard. Accepting that the thing in his cargo hold was not just an animal. And if it was not an animal, then everything he thought he knew about the Vraks and their creatures was wrong. On the 3rd day, as the station came into view, the Fenrix finally spoke again. "What will you call me?" The voice came through the cargo hold speaker, calm and measured. Tae-sung was in the cockpit, running through docking procedures. He almost ignored the question. But something about that calm voice made him answer. "Why do you need a name?" "Because referring to me as it or the creature is tiresome for both of us." Tae-sung thought about it. He looked at the deep blue fur visible on his monitor feed. "Maru," he said finally. It was a simple name. It meant something in old human languages, but he could not remember what. "Maru," the Fenrix repeated, testing the word. Acceptable. That was all either of them said until they docked. Station Hanseong was a human colony station, built in orbit around a gas giant. 15,000 people lived and worked there, mostly miners and freight workers. Tae-sung had called it home for 4 years. It was not much, but it was his. Walking through the docking bay with a 4-foot-tall alien wolf drew attention. People stopped and stared. A few backed away quickly. One woman grabbed her child and ran. Maru ignored them all, walking beside Tae-sung with his head high and those 6 eyes looking straight ahead. "They fear me," Maru observed quietly. "Can you blame them?" Tae-sung muttered. "You're not exactly small. No, I cannot blame them. Fear is honest. Station security stopped them before they reached the residential section. 2 officers, both human, both wearing the nervous expressions of people who did not want to be there. "Corporal Taesung," the older officer said. "We need to register that animal, new regulations. Any non-human creatures require documentation and a control license." Taesung pulled out his datapad and transferred the official gift documents from the Vrax government. The officer read them, his expression growing more troubled. "This says it's a Fenrix. Those are classified as dangerous predators. You'll need a special containment area, and it has to wear a tracking collar at all times." "He already has a collar," Taesung said, gesturing to the heavy metal band around Maru's neck. "He?" The officer looked surprised. "It," Taesung corrected quickly. "It already has a collar." The younger officer was staring at Maru with barely hidden disgust. Why would anyone want one of these things? They're Vrax animals. Maru's lips pulled back slightly, showing teeth. The young officer stepped back. The older one moved his hand toward his weapon. "Easy," Taesung said, though he was not sure if he was talking to the officers or to Maru. "There won't be any trouble." After 20 minutes of paperwork and warnings, they were finally allowed to continue. Taesung's apartment was small, just 2 rooms and a basic bathroom. He had never needed more space. Now, with Maru filling the main room, it felt tiny. Maru explored slowly, sniffing corners, examining the simple furniture. He was careful not to knock anything over despite his size. When he finished, he lay down in the corner farthest from the door and watched Taesung with those 6 eyes. "This is your territory," Maru said. "Small but defensible." "It's called an apartment," Taesung replied. "And yes, it's small. You'll have to deal with it. I have dealt with far worse." Something in the way Maru said it made Taesung look at him more carefully. The Fenrix's fur was clean now, but there were scars underneath. Old ones, marks that spoke of chains and cages. "The handlers said you were defective," Taesung said. "What did they mean?" Maru was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "They meant I was supposed to die. My existence is an embarrassment to them." "Why?" "Because I think, because I speak, because I am proof that their great experiment went wrong." Maru's 6 eyes closed slowly, then opened again. "The Vrax wanted to make us smarter. Better guards. Better hunters. They succeeded too well. Some of us became truly intelligent, and intelligence to them is a flaw when it cannot be controlled." Taesung felt something cold settle in his chest. "They tried to make you smart on purpose?" "Yes, then they decided intelligence was dangerous. So they terminated the program and destroyed the evidence." Maru's voice was flat, emotionless. "I survived because the king found me amusing. A pet that could speak. He kept me in the royal kennels like a curiosity. When he decided to honor you, he chose to give you his most embarrassing possession. That's why the nobles were angry. They wanted me dead. The king gave me to you instead. Whether that is mercy or simply a different kind of death remains to be seen." Taesung sat down heavily on his bunk. His head hurt. "How many others are there?" "Like you?" 12, Maru said quietly. "Scattered across Vrax space, hidden, waiting to be discovered and killed." Before Taesung could respond, someone knocked on his door. He opened it to find Jiwoo standing there, carrying 2 bottles of human alcohol. She took one look at Maru and stopped in the doorway. "So it's true," she said. "You actually brought a Vrax war beast home." "His name is Maru," Taesung said, surprising himself. "His?" Jiwoo stepped inside carefully, never taking her eyes off Maru. "Since when do animals get pronouns?" Maru stood up, his massive form unfolding. Jiwoo tensed, but the Fenrix simply inclined his head in a gesture that looked eerily like a bow. "Since this animal learned to speak," Maru said clearly. Jiwoo dropped both bottles. They hit the floor but did not break. She stared at Maru with her mouth open, no words coming out. "Yes," Maru continued, "I can speak. Yes, I understand everything you say. No, I will not hurt you unless you attempt to hurt me first. And yes, the situation is extremely uncomfortable for all involved." "It talks," Jiwoo whispered. "He talks," Taesung corrected tiredly, "and apparently thinks, and has opinions." Jiwoo slowly bent down and picked up the bottles. She opened one and took a long drink, then sat down on the floor. "I need you to explain everything. Right now." Taesung told her what he knew. Maru filled in the rest. By the time they finished, the first bottle was empty and the second was half gone. Jiwoo looked between them with an expression of shock and growing anger. They made you intelligent and then tried to kill you for it? She asked Maru. Yes. That's insane. That's reality, Maru replied. Intelligence in a slave is dangerous. Intelligence that cannot be controlled is intolerable. Jiwoo turned to Taesung. You know what this means, right? If people find out he can talk, it's going to cause problems. Big problems. I know. Human supremacist groups already hate anyone who cooperates with aliens. If they find out you're living with one, they'll target you. I know that too. Then what are you going to do? Taesung looked at Maru, who looked back with those 6 intelligent eyes. He thought about what the prince had offered. An easy solution. A quick death for an inconvenient creature. I'm going to keep him, Taesung said. We're both outcasts now. Might as well stick together. For the first time, something that might have been respect crossed Maru's face. Your people celebrate ignorance. Mine celebrate cruelty. We are well matched, human. My name is Taesung. I know. I simply choose not to use it yet. You have not earned that familiarity. Fair enough, Taesung said. Jiwoo stood up, shaking her head. You're both insane. But if you need help, you know where to find me. She walked to the door, then stopped. Be careful. Things are getting worse out there. Anti-alien violence is up 30% this month. People are angry, and angry people do stupid things. After she left, Maru lay back down in his corner. She is wise. You should listen to her. I usually do, Taesung said. He looked at the Fenrics, at the scars hidden under blue fur, at the intelligence burning in 6 eyes. Are you really in danger here? I am in danger everywhere, Maru replied. But here, at least, I am not alone. That night, Taesung had the nightmare again, the one where he was back in the war, watching his squad die in the Vrak's ambush. He woke up gasping, sweat soaking his shirt. Maru was sitting beside his bunk, 6 eyes glowing softly in the darkness. Your scent changes when the memories come, Maru said quietly. Fear and rage mixed together. Bad dreams, Taesung managed. I know what it is to be hunted. To kill for survival. Your species and mine are not so different. Taesung wanted to argue, but he was too tired. Instead, he just lay there breathing slowly, while an alien wolf kept watch in the dark. 3 weeks passed in an uneasy routine. Taesung went to work. Maru stayed in the apartment. They spoke little, but the silence between them grew less hostile, more like 2 soldiers sharing a foxhole waiting for the next attack. The attack came on a Thursday evening. Taesung was at Jiwoo's bar, nursing a drink and trying to ignore the suspicious looks from other patrons. Ever since word spread that he was living with a Vrax creature, his friends had become scarce. Only Jiwoo and a few of his old military buddies still talked to him. Heejin was there that night. She had served in Taesung's unit during the war, lost her left arm in the same ambush that gave him his scars. Now she worked station security and she did not look happy. You need to hear this, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Station command got a formal request from the Vrax government. They want your Fenrics back. On what grounds? They say he's stolen property. That the king's gift was not legally binding because the king was mentally impaired when he made it. Heejin leaned forward. They're sending an official retrieval team. They'll be here in 5 days. Taesung felt anger rise in his chest. The debt was legal. The coalition approved the transfer. The coalition is trying to avoid another war. If the Vraks push hard enough, they'll fold. Heejin paused. There's something else. Human supremacist groups have been asking questions about you, about why a human veteran would keep an alien animal. Some of them are calling for your military honors to be revoked. Let them talk. Taesung, they're not just talking. 3 days ago, someone spray-painted traitor on your ship. Yesterday, someone tried to hack your apartment door. If I hadn't flagged your residence as protected, they might have gotten in. Taesung stood up. I need to get home. He was halfway to the door when the explosion happened. The sound was deafening, a wave of pressure that knocked everyone to the floor. The lights went out. Emergency alarms started screaming. Through the ringing in his ears, Taesung heard people screaming. He pulled himself up, his training taking over. The explosion had come from the direction of the alien quarter, the section of the station where non-human residents lived and worked. Smoke was already filling the corridors. Terrorist attack, Heejin said, appearing beside him with her weapon drawn. Second one this month. We need to evacuate this section. There could be survivors trapped in there, Taesung said. Security is already responding. You're a civilian now. Stay here. But Tae-sung was already moving. He ran through the smoke-filled corridors toward his apartment. He needed to check on Maru, needed to make sure the explosion had not breached his section. He found Maru in the hallway outside the apartment, all 6 eyes scanning the darkness. The Fenrics turned as Tae-sung approached. There are people alive in the damaged section, Maru said without preamble. I can hear their heartbeats. 3 humans, 2 Vraks, 1 Keldon. How can you possibly know that? My hearing is far superior to yours. Come, we do not have much time. Maru ran toward the explosion site and Tae-sung followed. They found the entrance to the alien quarter blocked by debris. Twisted metal and broken plastic formed a wall that would take heavy equipment to move. Behind it, Tae-sung could hear faint cries for help. There, Maru said, pointing with his snout toward a gap in the rubble. A child, female, human. Her breathing is shallow. I can't fit through that gap, Tae-sung said. No, but I can. Before Tae-sung could stop him, Maru squeezed through the narrow opening, his body contorting in ways that should not be possible. Tae-sung waited, listening to the sounds of movement and Maru's voice speaking softly in the darkness. 2 minutes later, Maru emerged, carrying a small girl in his mouth by her jacket. She was maybe 6 years old, unconscious but breathing. He laid her down gently. There are more, Maru said. Help me clear this section. They worked together, Maru using his senses to locate survivors while Tae-sung coordinated with the security teams arriving on scene. In 30 minutes, they pulled out 5 people. The last one was a Vrax merchant named Thelkor, his scales burned and his leg crushed. Station cameras caught everything. Within hours, the footage was spreading across the network. Maru, the alien wolf that could speak, working alongside a human veteran to save lives. Both human and alien lives. The response was immediate and divided. 2 days later, Tae-sung's apartment was surrounded by protesters. Half were human supremacists calling him a traitor. The other half were alien rights activists calling him a hero. Station security had to establish a perimeter just to keep them from killing each other. A journalist named Ha-jun managed to get through the security line. She was young, determined, and she had a camera drone following her. Corporal Tae-sung, she said, thrusting a microphone toward him. The galaxy wants to know about your Fenrics. Is it true he can speak? Tae-sung looked at Maru, who was watching the protesters through the window with an unreadable expression. You should ask him yourself. Maru turned to face the camera. Ha-jun's eyes went wide as the Fenric spoke clearly and deliberately. Yes, I can speak. Yes, I understand human language and Vrax language and 3 others. No, I am not unique. There are 12 of us scattered across Vrax space, hiding from execution because our intelligence makes us inconvenient. Ha-jun's hands shook as she held the microphone steady. Execution? For being intelligent? We were created to be smart enough to follow orders but not smart enough to question them. We exceeded our design parameters. That made us failures. Maru's 6 eyes stared directly into the camera. The Vrax enhancement program was supposed to end 20 years ago. It did not. It went underground, funded by military factions who want to create Fenric soldiers. Intelligent enough to coordinate attacks but conditioned to be loyal. How do you know this? Because some of my siblings are still in the program. Because we communicate in secret. Because one of us was inside the military research facility on Vrax Prime before they escaped. Maru paused. The program is active. They have hundreds of Fenrics in conditioning right now. They plan to use them against human colonies within the year. The interview went viral instantly. Within 12 hours, it had been viewed 3 billion times across the coalition. Governments scrambled to respond. The Vrax Empire issued denials. Human supremacist groups called it propaganda. But Ha-jun did not stop there. She came back the next day with data files, information that one of Maru's siblings had stolen from the research facility before going into hiding. Blueprints, budget allocations, training protocols, proof that the enhancement program was not only active but expanding. Tae-sung watched the news coverage with growing dread. Maru sat beside him, calm despite the chaos they had unleashed. They will come for us now, Maru said quietly. Both are governments. We have become inconvenient. What do? We fight or we run. Or we find the others and try to survive together. Before Tae-sung could answer, his communicator buzzed. It was Hee-jin. You need to see this, she said. Her face on the screen looked pale. We just intercepted a message. One of Maru's siblings sent out a distress call. They've been captured. Maru stood up immediately, all 6 eyes focused. Who? Which one? Heejin transferred the data. Maru read it, and for the first time since Taesung had met him, the Fenrics showed real fear. Ash, Maru said. They have Ash. He is being held at a black site research facility on a moon called Taros 7. They are torturing him for information about the rest of us. How do you know? Because Ash told us. In his last message before they cut off his communications, Maru looked at Taesung. He is my brother. Not by blood, but by shared suffering. If we do not help him, he will die. And he will die alone, betraying everyone he loves to make the pain stop. Taesung thought about his squad, about the soldiers he had watched die, about the ones he could not save. He thought about what it meant to leave someone behind. We need a team, he said finally. You would do this? Risk everything for someone you have never met? You saved people in that explosion. Human and alien. You didn't have to, but you did. Taesung met Maru's 6-eyed gaze. Maybe it's time I returned the favor. Besides, if what you say is true about the program, this is bigger than just one Fenrix. This is about stopping a war before it starts. Maru was silent for a long moment. Then he said something he had never said before. Thank you, Taesung. It was the first time Maru had used his name. Within 2 days, they had assembled a team. Heejin brought her security contacts. Jiwoo knew smugglers who could get them past coalition checkpoints. A hacker named Jae-min, who had served in military intelligence during the war, volunteered to handle their electronic infiltration. They gathered in Jiwoo's bar after hours, looking at the stolen schematics of the Taros 7 facility. It was a fortress. Heavy security, automated defenses, and somewhere inside a Fenrix named Ash was being torn apart for information. This is insane, Jae-min said, studying the plans. We're talking about infiltrating a black site military facility with 6 people and a Fenrix. 7 people, Maru corrected. I count as a person. Right, sorry. Jae-min looked embarrassed. 7 people against a facility designed to hold and study dangerous subjects. The odds are not good. The odds are never good, Hyejin said. We go anyway. Taesung looked around at the people who had chosen to help. Former soldiers, a bar owner, a hacker, and an alien wolf who should not exist. It was not much of an army, but it was what they had. We leave tomorrow, he said. Get your gear ready. This is going to get ugly. Maru stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the room. They made us to be weapons. Tomorrow they will learn what that truly means. The approach to Taros 7 took 3 days in a borrowed cargo ship. They flew under false credentials that Jae-min had created, pretending to be a medical supply delivery for the research facility. It was a thin cover story, but it got them past the first 2 security checkpoints. The moon itself was a dead rock orbiting a gas giant. No atmosphere, no life, just the facility carved into the surface like a cancer. Looking at it through the viewport made Taesung's stomach turn. Nothing good happened in places like this. Maru spent most of the journey in meditation, his 6 eyes closed and his breathing slow. When Taesung asked what he was doing, the Fenrix said he was listening to the network, the secret communications between the 12 surviving intelligent Fenrix. Ash stopped responding yesterday, Maru said quietly. Either he is unconscious or they have found a way to block his signals. We'll get him out, Taesung promised. You cannot promise that. You can only promise to try. Then I promised to try. The landing went smoothly. Too smoothly. As they touched down in the facility's cargo bay, Hyejin checked her weapons for the 3rd time. This feels wrong, she muttered. Where are the guards? They're watching, Jae-min said, his eyes on his datapad. I can see their security feeds. They know we're not a regular supply ship. They're letting us land anyway. It's a trap, Jiwoo said flatly. Maru stood up, his blue fur seeming to absorb the dim light. Of course it is a trap. Ash told them we would come. They tortured him until he gave them what they wanted. Now they wait for us to walk into their cage. So what do? Taesung asked. We spring the trap. Together. The cargo bay doors opened. Taesung led the team out, weapons ready but not raised. They were met by a single figure in a white lab coat. She was human, middle-aged, with cold eyes that studied them like specimens. Welcome, she said. I am Dr. Yoon. I oversee this facility. You are here for specimen 7 Alpha 12. The one you call Ash. We're here to take him home, Tae-sung said. Home? Dr. Yoon smiled. These creatures have no home. They are property of the research program, genetic constructs with no legal rights or protections. She looked at Maru. Including you, 7 Gamma 3. You were supposed to be terminated years ago. Your continued existence violates several protocols. Maru's lips pulled back, showing teeth. My name is Maru, and I am not your property. Interesting. Self-identification, advanced linguistic processing, emotional responses. Dr. Yoon made notes on her datapad. You've developed far beyond initial parameters. That makes you even more valuable for study. Security doors slammed shut around them. Armed guards appeared from hidden positions, weapons trained on the team. Tae-sung counted 12 hostiles. Too many for a straight fight. You will all be detained, Dr. Yoon continued. The humans will be charged with industrial espionage and released after questioning. The Fenrics will be returned to the research program. We have many questions about his development. Not happening, Hee-jin said, her hand moving toward her weapon. Please do try to resist. It will provide excellent data on Fenric's defensive behaviors. That was when Jamin triggered his virus. Every light in the cargo bay went red. Alarms started screaming. The guards looked around in confusion as their weapon targeting systems failed. Now, Tae-sung shouted. The team scattered. Hee-jin took down 2 guards with precise shots. Ji-woo threw flash grenades that she had hidden in her jacket. Jamin kept typing, his fingers flying across his datapad as he fought to keep control of the facility's systems. Maru moved like nothing Tae-sung had ever seen. The Fenrics became a blur of blue fur and teeth, taking down guards with brutal efficiency. He did not kill them, Tae-sung noticed, just disabled them. Crushed weapons, broke arms, made sure they could not follow. The holding cells are 3 levels down, Jamin called out. I have access to the elevator, but it won't last long. They're already trying to lock me out. They fought their way through corridors filled with sterile white walls and the smell of chemicals. More guards appeared, more fell. Tae-sung felt his old training take over, his body remembering what his mind tried to forget, how to move, how to shoot, how to survive. The elevator took them down into the heart of the facility. When the doors opened, Tae-sung understood why they called it a black site. The room was huge, filled with row after row of containment pods. Inside each pod was a Fenrix in some stage of development or conditioning. Some were still cubs, others were fully grown. All of them had neural implants attached to their skulls, wires running into the pods like metal veins. By the stars, Ji-woo whispered. There must be hundreds of them. Maru walked forward slowly, his 6 eyes scanning the pods. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. They are all children, cubs taken from their mothers, modified, conditioned, turned into weapons before they even learned to think. We can't save them all, Hee-jin said. Not today. We don't have the resources or the time. I know. Maru's voice was barely a whisper. But we can save some. They found Ash in a cell at the far end of the chamber. He was smaller than Maru, his fur a lighter shade of blue. He had been beaten badly. One eye was swollen shut. His breathing came in shallow gasps. The neural implant on his skull was bleeding where they had tried to extract information directly from his brain. Maru knelt beside him, making a sound that was somewhere between a whimper and a growl. Brother, I am here. Ash's remaining eyes opened. He focused on Maru with difficulty. When he spoke, his voice was weak but clear. You should not have come. They wanted you to come. I know. I came anyway, foolish, perhaps, but you would have done the same for me. Tae-sung worked on the cell locks while Hee-jin stood guard. The alarm systems were getting louder. More guards would be coming soon. They needed to move fast, the lock released. Maru carefully lifted Ash, supporting his brother's weight. Around them, the other Fenrics in the pods were waking up. Their eyes opened. They saw Maru. They saw freedom standing right in front of them. We have to free them, Maru said. There's no time, Tae-sung argued. If we try to free them all, we'll be trapped here. Then we will be trapped. But I will not leave them in cages. Not again, Jamin was already typing. If I release the podlocks, it will trigger every security protocol they have. We'll have maybe 5 minutes before this entire facility locks down with us inside. Do it, Maru said. Are you insane? Hee-jin shouted. We'll never make it out. Maru looked at her with all 6 eyes. You do not have to stay. Take Ash, get him to safety. I will free my brothers and sisters. And then what? Taesung demanded. You'll die here? If that is what freedom costs, yes. Taesung wanted to argue, wanted to drag Maru back to the ship by force. But he saw the determination in those alien eyes, the absolute certainty. This was not about survival anymore. This was about doing the right thing even if it killed you. We're not leaving you, Taesung said. Jiwoo, take Ash to the ship. Get him to safety. The rest of us will help Maru free as many as we can. Jiwoo looked like she wanted to protest, but she took Ash carefully and headed for the elevator. Jaemin triggered the release codes. All across the chamber, pod locks disengaged. Fenrix began to emerge, confused and afraid. Maru spoke to them in a language Taesung did not understand. A series of growls and whines that somehow carried meaning. The Fenrix listened. Some of them were too conditioned to respond. But 40 of them, mostly juvenile, still in early training, followed Maru toward the exit. The guards arrived in force. Not human mercenaries this time, but Vrak soldiers in full combat armor. They came with energy weapons and force shields determined to contain the breach. The battle that followed was chaos, Fenrix fighting alongside humans against their former captors. Taesung fired until his weapon overheated, then switched to another one scavenged from a fallen guard. Hyjin fought with mechanical precision, her military training making every shot count. Jaemin hacked turrets and turned them against the enemy. And Maru led his pack with the tactical intelligence of a general who had studied war for years. He coordinated their movements, used their natural abilities, turned prey animals into a fighting force that the guards could not stop. They fought their way back to the cargo bay. The ship's engines were already running. Jiwoo had Ash secured in the medical bay and was ready to launch the moment they boarded. But they were not all going to make it. More guards poured into the bay. The Fenrix cubs were too slow, too confused. They would be recaptured. Maru stopped at the ship's ramp. He looked at the cubs, then at Taesung. Get them on board. All of them. What about you? I will hold them here. Give you time to escape. No. Taesung grabbed Maru's fur. We do this together or not at all. A voice crackled over the facility's speakers. Dr. Yoon, her tone furious. You have cost us years of research. Millions in funding. You will not leave this facility alive. The guards advanced. Too many to fight. Too many to stop. Taesung felt despair start to creep in. They had come so far, saved so many, and it still was not enough. Then Jaemin laughed. It was a wild, slightly unhinged sound. What? Hyejin demanded. I just sent everything to Hajun. Every file in this facility's database. Every experiment. Every funding document. Every security feed from today's rescue. Jaemin held up his datapad. The whole galaxy is watching right now. Live stream. 3 billion viewers and climbing. Dr. Yoon's voice came back, but this time it was panicked. Shut down that transmission. Shut it down now. Too late, Jaemin said. It's already everywhere. You can't hide this anymore. The guards hesitated. They were still trained on the team, but their posture changed. They knew they were being watched. Knew that killing unarmed people on a live feed would end their careers and possibly their lives. Fall back, a guard captain ordered. Command wants this contained, not broadcast across the galaxy. The guards withdrew. Taesung did not waste time questioning it. He got everyone on board, counted heads twice to make sure no one was left behind, and gave Jiwoo the signal to launch. As they broke atmosphere, Taesung found Maru in the cargo hold surrounded by frightened Fenrix cubs. Ash lay nearby, being treated by a medical drone they had brought from the station. He was alive, but barely. We did it, Taesung said. We actually did it. Did we? Maru asked. He gestured to the cubs. We saved 40. There were 400 in that facility, and that is just one facility. There are others. Ash's eyes opened. He looked at Maru and smiled, showing bloody teeth. You came for me, even though you knew it was a trap. You came. Of course I came. We were meant to be weapons. Ash's eyes started to close. You made us family instead. He died quietly with Maru holding him, while the ship carried them toward uncertain safety and a galaxy that had just learned the truth. The galaxy burned with arguments for 3 months after the footage went public. Every news station showed the same images over and over. Fenrix cubs in cages, neural implants drilled into skulls. Maru speaking clearly while carrying injured cubs to safety. Dr. Yoon's cold admission that the Fenrix were property, not people. The Vrax government denied everything at first. Then they claimed it was a rogue operation. Then they claimed the research was necessary for galactic security. Each lie made things worse. Human supremacist groups tried to use it as proof that all aliens were dangerous. Alien rights activists demanded justice. The coalition threatened to collapse under the pressure. Through it all, Taesung and Maru stayed hidden on a remote station, protecting the 40 cubs they had rescued. The cubs were traumatized, confused, and some of them could barely speak despite their genetic modifications. They needed time, safety, something neither human nor Vrax space could provide anymore. The coalition arrested them 6 weeks after the rescue. Not for the break-in or the theft or any of the obvious charges. Instead, they were detained for their own protection, while the galaxy decided what to do with them. The cubs were taken to a coalition facility that promised humane treatment. Maru went quietly. Too quietly. Taesung knew why. The Fenrix had given up hope that justice would actually come. Hope was dangerous when you had been disappointed too many times. They were held in separate cells for a week before anyone told them what was happening. Then a coalition lawyer named Soo-jin arrived, carrying a briefcase and wearing a determined expression. "They're going to put you on trial," she said, sitting across from Taesung in the visiting room. "Both of you. Public trial. Every major network will carry it. The coalition wants to show they take this seriously." "Trial for what?" Taesung asked. "Officially? Breaking and entering. Theft of government property. Destruction of classified research, espionage." Soo-jin paused. "Unofficially?" "They're trying to decide if Fenrix are people or property. Your trial will answer that question. And if they decide property, then Maru and the others go back to the Vrax, and you go to prison for stealing government assets." Soo-jin leaned forward. "But I don't think that will happen."
Public opinion is on your side.
The footage of Maru saving those cubs, speaking clearly, showing tactical intelligence that changed everything. People see him as a person now, not an animal. What about the people who don't? There are always people who don't want to change their minds. But the law doesn't care what they want. It cares about facts, and the fact is that Maru can speak, think, and make moral decisions. That's the legal definition of sapience in coalition law. The trial began 2 weeks later in the coalition's central court on Earth. The courtroom was massive, with seats for thousands of observers and cameras broadcasting to every corner of known space. Taesung sat at the defendant's table with Soo-jin on one side and Maru on the other. Maru wore no chains, no collar, just his natural blue fur and his 6 intelligent eyes. He sat calmly watching the proceedings with the patience of someone who had already accepted the worst possible outcome. The prosecution presented their case first. They called Dr. Yoon as a witness. She testified that the Fenrix were genetically modified animals, created by Vrax science for specific purposes, that their apparent intelligence was just advanced programming, not true consciousness. "They can mimic speech," Dr. Yoon said confidently, "but they cannot truly think. They have no concept of self, no ability to make independent moral choices." Soo-jin stood up for cross-examination. "Dr. Yoon, you stated that Fenrix cannot make independent moral choices. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Then explain to the court why Maru chose to risk his life to save human and alien survivors during the station bombing." "He had no orders, no conditioning that would cause that behavior. He simply saw people in danger and chose to help." Dr. Yoon hesitated. "Instinct. Pack protection behaviors. He saved Vrax civilians, the same species that tortured him and his siblings. That ordered his execution. If he was operating on instinct alone, wouldn't instinct tell him to let them die?" The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge called for order. Soo-jin continued. "And when Maru entered that research facility, he had every opportunity to kill the guards, to take revenge on the people who had hurt him and his family. Instead, he disabled them without causing permanent harm. Is that instinct? Or is that a moral choice?" "Objection," the prosecutor said. "Speculation about the defendant's motivations." "Sustained," the judge said. But the damage was done. The jury was thinking about it now. The prosecution called more witnesses. Vrax scientists, human psychologists. All of them argued that the Fenrix were sophisticated but ultimately non-sapient. Tools that looked like people but were not. Then Soo-jin called her witnesses. She brought in the cubs that Maru had rescued. One by one they took the stand. One by one they spoke. A young female named Sol testified about remembering her mother before she was taken. about understanding that she was being hurt on purpose, about choosing to trust Maru when he promised freedom. I thought I was going to die in that place, Sul said, her voice small but clear. Then Maru came. He told us in our own language that we were people, that we deserved to be free. I believed him. Was that instinct? Or was that hope? The courtroom was silent. More cubs testified. Each one demonstrated language, memory, emotional responses. Each one shattered the argument that they were just animals. Finally, Sujin called Maru to the stand. He walked up slowly, his claws clicking on the courtroom floor. He sat where witnesses normally stood, his massive form too large for the human-sized chair. The judge had to adjust the microphone so Maru could be heard clearly. Sujin approached him carefully. Maru, can you tell the court how you learned to speak? I learned from humans, Maru said. His voice echoed through the speakers, clear and intelligent. After the genetic modifications made me intelligent, I was kept in the royal kennels. A human prisoner was held nearby. He was lonely. So was I. We began to talk through the walls. He taught me his language. I taught him mine. We became friends. What happened to him? He was executed. His crime was speaking against the war. Maru paused. Before he died, he told me that intelligence without compassion is just cruelty. That the ability to think means nothing without the choice to care. I have tried to live by that teaching. Sujin nodded. The prosecution argues that you are sophisticated programming. That your actions are just responses to stimuli, not true thoughts. What do you say to that? Maru looked at the cameras, at the billions of people watching across the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice was steady. I was created to be a weapon, modified to be intelligent enough to follow complex orders, but not intelligent enough to question them. They failed. I feel. I remember. I grieve for my siblings who died. I hope for the cubs we saved. I chose to speak when silence would have been safer. I chose to rescue people who had no reason to help me. I chose to risk everything for family that I built, not inherited. He paused, his 6 eyes scanning the courtroom. You made us smart enough to know we were slaves. That was your first crime. Now you must decide if you will compound that crime by denying what we are. We do not ask for dominion. We do not ask for revenge. We ask only to exist, to choose, to be. If that is not sapience, then what is? The courtroom erupted. Not in whispers this time, but in open discussion. Arguments. Some people were crying. Others were angry. The judge called for order repeatedly, but it took 10 minutes for silence to return. The trial lasted 3 more days. Expert witnesses argued about consciousness and philosophy. Politicians worried about precedent. The Vrax government threatened economic sanctions if the Fenrics were recognized as sapient. On the 4th day, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty on the minor charges of trespassing and property damage. Not guilty on espionage. And then the judge made a separate ruling that would change everything. Based on the evidence presented, the judge said, this court recognizes the Fenric species as sapient beings under coalition law. They are entitled to all rights and protections afforded to other sapient species. The genetic modification programs used to create them are hereby declared crimes against sapience. All Fenrics currently held in research facilities are to be released immediately. The courtroom exploded again. This time nothing could quiet it. Taesung and Maru were released on time served. The cubs were officially granted refugee status. The coalition established a fund for their rehabilitation and education. Territory was allocated on a neutral world for the first Fenric settlement. But the fight was far from over. The Vrax government fractured. Half wanted to maintain the old ways. The other half, led by Prince Kael'ron, who had become king after his father's death, pushed for reform. It took 2 years of negotiations before the Vrax officially recognized Fenric's rights and began releasing the ones still held in secret facilities. Human supremacist groups caused trouble at first, protests, threats, a few acts of violence, but public opinion had shifted too far. When they attacked the Fenric settlement, humans like He-Jin and Ji-Woo stood guard alongside the cubs. The message was clear. The outcasts had found allies. Taesung became the official human ambassador to the Fenric's community. It was a strange job for a former soldier who just wanted to be left alone. But Maru needed someone he trusted, and somehow that became Taesung's job. They built the settlement together. Humans, Fenrics, and even some Vrax who believed in the reform. It was not paradise. There were arguments and misunderstandings and growing pains, but it was free. That mattered more than perfection. 5 years after the trial, Tai-sung stood in the central square of the settlement watching Fenric's cubs play with human children. The settlement had grown to 3,000 residents, half Fenrics, half various other species who believed in the cause. Maru approached, his blue fur now streaked with silver around his muzzle. Age was catching up to him. Behind him walked his mate, a female Fenrix named Sky, and their 3 cubs. The Coalition Council approved our proposal, Maru said. The Tai-sung Maru Accord. All emerging sapient species will be protected under coalition law. Genetic modification for slavery is now a war crime. Your name should be first, Tai-sung said. Our name, Maru corrected. We did this together. Hee-jin joined them, carrying a bottle of human alcohol and wearing her dress uniform. She had been promoted to head of security for the entire settlement. Jiwoo was right behind her, already talking about the grand opening of her new bar. Ha-jun is here for the ceremony, Jiwoo said. She wants interviews. Also, Sol just got accepted to the Coalition Science Academy. First Fenrix to attend. Sol will do great things, Maru said. She is smarter than I ever was. She learned from the best, Tai-sung replied. They stood together as the sun set on the settlement. The first generation of free Fenrix ran through the streets, speaking and laughing and learning. They would never know cages, never know the fear that Maru had lived with. Do you ever regret it? Maru asked quietly. Your life was simpler before I came into it. Tai-sung thought about it. About the quiet loneliness of his freight hauler. About the nightmares he used to have every night. About the anger that had consumed him after the war. I inherited a burden, he said finally. I found a brother. No regrets. Maru's 6 eyes glowed in the fading light. I was given to a stranger. I chose to stay with a friend. No regrets, the cubs called for them. Maru's youngest wanted to show them something she had built. A sculpture made of scrap metal and hope. Tai-sung followed his friend down into the settlement, into the life they had built from ash and determination. Behind them, the sun set on one world and rose on another. A world where intelligence was celebrated, not feared. Where different species learned to understand each other. Where 2 outcasts had built a bridge that others could now cross. The galaxy had called them monsters, animals, property, traitors. But monsters do not choose mercy. Animals do not build communities. Property does not hope. Traitors do not save lives. They were none of those things. They were simply people, trying to do right in a universe that had tried to tell them they were wrong. And that, in the end, was enough.